All right. Hi, everybody. Happy Thursday. We are super excited to be here today. We have such a wonderful guest with us, and I'm excited to dive all in with Sean. However, I want to say hello to my wonderful co host, Megan. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Just bouncing from one thing to another like normal.
Just your typical Thursday with all your beautiful plants behind you. You're absolutely radiant right now. I love that. And then we have Sean McLaughlin here with Alaska Gear Company. How are you doing today, Sean?
I'm doing great. No plants though. No plants, unfortunately here.
You guys can't see, but I got one. It's
There you
fake.
go.
That's how I do. That's the only thing
I
I
didn't
can
I didn't get the memo on that. I didn't get the memo on that, but
No,
I'll,
thank
I'll
you
send
so
it out.
much for being here, Sean.
no problem.
Wonderful.
My
And we
pleasure.
are excited to jump right in. We've got so many questions for you. So I'm just going to jump in with the first question. I want to know a little bit. Can you share for people that don't know about Alaska Gear Company and about you a little bit about your journey into the outdoor gear industry and what motivated you to become CEO of Alaska Gear Company, as well as expand into other businesses like Flintlock and Craig Taylor Peterbilt of Alaska?
I'll try to let me break that apart a little bit. So let's talk. We'll talk a little bit about Alaska Gear Company first. So Alaska Gear Company, basically, we our tagline is experience true wilderness, and that really means getting out off a road system and trying to adventure or explore, but also get into extreme weather. So if you think about Alaska and super cold, super wet environments, so our product set basically does that. The beginning of the company was really about bush flying and about parts that make super cubs fly in the middle of nowhere and be able to get back and all that kind of thing. And then we've expanded the story by adding sort of the other Alaskan acquisition companies, Northern Sled Works and Alaska Tent and Tarp, and that brings in the Arctic Oven or the Siglin Sled and things like that we do as well. So that's what Alaska Gear Company is. In terms of the company, our factories are in Anchorage, Palmer, and Fairbanks. We have about 100 people. We do about $20 million in revenue. And our business, I think one of the unique things about us too is that our business it's about 50% Alaskan customers and then about 50% the rest of the world. And that's the lower 48, but also a lot of other countries. And so we're a little unique in the sense that we can manufacture stuff here in Alaska and sell it worldwide and actually make a living doing that, which I think sometimes that sounds as hard as climbing Denali, but we do make that work. My story in starting the business was that I'm a software entrepreneur. Historically, I'm from the East Coast. I moved here in 2005 after working in the Bush II administration with my family. And when I got here, I spent a whole career in software development and design on Wall Street. And I decided once my wife kicked me out of the house, we did adventuring, hunting, fishing. And then she's like, you need to get a job. And at that point, I went hunting, looking for things rather. I guess I want to use a hunting example, but I went looking for things that were more tactile or more things my kids could understand. I have a large family and I wanted to do things that they could be involved in. And software programming is sort of I guess a lot of kids know about software nowadays, but it was like nothing you can really touch, feel, taste kind of thing. So when I got here, I just made a few acquisitions of some small companies and started working on them. And Alaska Tent and Tarp is the sort of the future of one of those companies that I acquired. Hopefully I hit most of your answers on that, Sammy. Is it Sammy or
Ooh,
Sammy, by the way?
either works perfectly for me. So, yeah.
Okay.
As long as it's not Samantha.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well,
Wonderful. No,
that's really interesting. When did you come to Alaska?
2005. So I actually came beginning of '05. I was then asked to go back to Washington, D.C. for a work stint. And so we kind of moved and then we moved back and then we kind of got here full time like the end of 2006.
Nice. Were you outdoorsy before that?
So yeah, so well, in some ways, so I owned a farm in Massachusetts, an apple orchard with about 2,000 apple trees on it.
oh,
I had a
wow.
lot of I would basically work at my software companies. I'd leave early on Friday. We'd go to the farm. I'd work the farm all weekend with the kids, and then I go back into sort of my computer world on Monday. So in that sense, it was rural. I mean, the joke was we went from being farmers to hunter gatherers. That's the way I kind of think of it. But it did have aspects of sort of Alaskan life to it. It was a big property, a lot of outdoor stuff. So yeah, a little bit, but not much more than that, really.
Was that like your first taste into manufacturing? Because I mean, having a farm is like mass producing.
Right.
Yeah, I think manufacturing. I'll be honest. So I look at it. I'm an accidental manufacturer. What I like problem solving, and I've been described by other people as what they call a 0-1 or 0-1 entrepreneur. So I like any intractable problem that I have to solve, and I get really excited and really intense about it, and I try to build a business and solve things. And software is really good for that. Software, you can kind of do it all literally in your head and on the screen, writing code. Translating that into manufacturing, it's actually been like a third career to kind of think about it in that way. Dealing with different types of people, different types of processes, different rules. But it really, to me, what I like about manufacturing is just this massive, Rubik's Cube of things you have to solve. And so that kind of gets my brain going. And honestly, if it's running well, I get bored. So and manufacturing sort of always has something happening. So, but it's kind of an extension of what I was doing in computer science as well. It's just solving problems and things like that.
Yeah, cool.
I love that. Accidental manufacturer. Kind of fell into that. No, I love that. And you keep talking about your family and how you came from farms. So I know we got a chance to talk right before the show, but can you tell the audience you come from a big family. How many kids do you have at home?
So I have 10 children. The same wife, still married, happily married. She's a school teacher in Anchorage. Teaches second grade.
Cool.
And the kids are now from, I think they're 30 to 14.
Oh, wow.
My two oldest are married. I've got 2 grandkids on the way. One's already, I got, so I'll have 3 ultimately. And my kids, a lot of them are pilots, kind of tracking on what we do here at Alaska Gear Company. They're all outdoor adventurers of different types. A lot of runners and backcountry runners and climbers and things like that in the family. So they've enjoyed the Alaska experience. It's been pretty fun. But you bring them up, I'll bring one other thing. One of the interesting things that happens here is one of the first things I ever told me when I moved to Alaska is, and I moved here for all the reasons a lot of people that just kind of get wowed by the state and you move here. But one of the first guys I met says, yeah, it would be a great place if you could eat the scenery, he told me. And I've remembered that ever since. That was told to me back in 2005. But you raise kids here now, and then you're like, your kids go to college, and like, okay, what are you going to do in your careers now? What's available in Alaska? You want to come here and hunt and fish, but how are you going to use your degree in X, Y, or Z here? And part of what I'm trying to do with the companies I'm running is sort of work on sort of one of these other intractable problems of Alaska, which is kind of a knowledge-based economy, an extract knowledge-based economy up here. I don't see any reason why we couldn't have one that's better than it is now. And I just sort of pick that as my next challenge. And Gear Company and some other companies are all sort of based on that philosophy as well.
Cool. Do any of your kids work for you?
My first child to ever work for me started yesterday.
No way. I am
Congratulations.
Yeah. So I had a rule that no child would ever work for me. And I wanted them all to take their own path and not feel there were any stress about working for me. But I had a son who just graduated from business school from Boston University. And he, on the side, worked for the North Face. And he has a lot of information about how the North Face works. And he wanted to come back to Alaska. And I'm like, well, it happens to be your dad owns a company that does something very similar. Let's give it a whirl for a while. So we're going to give it a test 1 year and see how he does. And he's taking over the clothing lines of the company as a start. He's going to run that division and kind of put us in a direction on that.
That is awesome. Congratulations. Wow.
I wasn't going to do it. You have all these rules when you're young, and then you get older and things start chipping away, and all of a sudden your kid's working for you. So.
Well, and it's great too that he's coming back to Alaska. Is this one that has a partner and kids coming as well?
So this one does not. He's 22. I don't even think he has any serious prospects. But I had a daughter come back as a teacher from University of Vermont, and she taught in Anchorage first grade. She's now leaving to go to pastry school in France for a year, but then she wants to come back and start a pastry place here. So she wants to come back, and I have some other kids that want to come back. I think if we hit half or 50%, I think I'll feel successful.
No, that is amazing, and it's amazing to hear too that one of your daughters followed in like your wife's footsteps too with teaching. So that's pretty cool.
Two of them did. I have 2 daughters that are teachers. One's a teacher in Boston as well, and yeah, it's been fun. And my other daughter is a computer scientist, so she actually followed in my footsteps. So.
I love that. I love it. So talk about staying busy. It sounds like you are always busy.
Always busy. Always busy. Wake up. I say wake up, fall forward. That's what my basic line is.
Tackle the next challenges. No, I love that. And so you talked a little bit about your son. He's going to come up, and hopefully, I'm hoping that's going to be a really, really great collaboration that you have. And he's going to take over the clothing line. Can you talk a little bit more about the line, like Alaska Gear, and like different things that you sell?
Sure. I think, so if you break it all apart, we started as an airplane parts manufacturing company. So that is the true manufacturing thing we started with. And the reason so that company was for sale when I moved up here. It made fuselages for P-18 aircraft. It was a small little company in Big Lake. We bought what they had, and then we started looking, okay, how can we build it? And you can only build that sort of segment so large. The reason it works in Alaska is that at the time, and pretty much still, so in the fuselage market, that basically the body of an aircraft for a bush plane, we have probably 95% market share. So that gives us pricing power, and it gives us, and because we're in Alaska, we have the gravitas to talk about having the best product in the bush plane. So we have two things we can leverage to be in Alaska. One is we're in Alaska and it's an Alaskan thing. And two, we have market share for pricing power and pricing protection, right? We're probably one of the most expensive places to weld something like this together. We have, tons of demand for welders up in Alaska. So that worked. And then we started building that business. And then the question is, okay, how do I keep building it? If I have 95% market share of a small cohort, how do I grow again? So we started expanding into other airplane parts. And then ultimately that resulted in saying, okay, well, it's only so far we're going to get in the airplane industry. And in most of the parts we make, we're somewhere above 90% market share on everything we make up here. But the question is, what do you do next to grow? And the airplane parts are good in that there's price protection and there's the FAA that's sort of controlling that market. And it's a good place to start, but it's a very small market. I sometimes joke, I'm like, so how many bush pilots I do these things in meetings where I go, how many bush pilots do you think there are in the United States? And they're like, I go, okay, what percentage of the United States population? That's our market. I go, how do we grow that? We can't, you have to boil the whole ocean to grow that. So the other things that we do are outside of aviation, but they have the same allure. They have the same sort of extreme adventure allure. So the customer base is the same. We can leverage what we're known for, but we can go into markets that are sort of unfettered and have a larger cohort, a larger addressable market. And then they're also Alaskan entrepreneurs and inventions. So the two, we went into sleds. That's a Fairbanks company we purchased, and Alaska Tent and Tarp was another Fairbanks company we purchased. And we took what's kind of a nice, good business that someone was running, a sole proprietorship kind of business, and we just businessified it. We just said, okay, now we're going to run it by numbers, and we're going to add marketing, and we're going to be intense about this and this and this. And we've been able to really do well with those businesses just by sort of applying that. And that's something the previous entrepreneur wasn't going to do with it, right? So does that help answer your question?
Yeah, actually, I want to, do you affy a lot of things? Because
I do. As a matter of fact, my kids, I guess in the last podcast, I said Alaskafy.
You did. And I think they titled that the podcast. Alaskafy.
Oh, did they? Okay. I didn't know that. I'm getting
business. I'm like,
yeah.
That's great.
It's a good shorthand, isn't it? I mean, it kind of works.
It is. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so I don't know, Sammy, if you have any questions on this, but we kind of talked about your son coming and doing the clothing part of it. What are you manufacturing here in Alaska? You're doing the parts, the aircraft parts. How about, can you talk about your bunny boots and where you're at with that process and how that's going? And is that something that your son's going to be running with?
He's not running with that one, but he might in time if he earns it. I'm staying pretty close to that project right now. I actually don't have a project manager for that project. I've been running that one myself.
Nice.
So yeah, let me break it down. So if you were to take the $20 million in revenue that we do, I would say at this point, 19.3 of it is Alaska manufacturing. And then most of it is Alaska manufacturing. We are hitting the limits of that. But we have room to grow if we can find the right products to build up here. But they're kind of magical. They're kind of like Goldilocks projects because you have to be able to have pricing power. It has to mean something. You've built it here to the customer. There's all these challenges that you have to kind of make it fit. But let's talk about bunny boots for a second. So we just released the bunny boots. We've been working on it for 3 years, and they released, I think 2 days ago.
Oh, amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So but it's a 3-year project we worked on. So the bunny boots, I'm sure people from Alaska will know what bunny boots are, but they're a pretty funny product because we just looked around and everybody who buys our other products is wearing bunny boots, but you can't buy bunny boots unless you can find some from 1980 in a Army Navy surplus store. And we just thought that was kind of an odd reality that it set in on these bunny boots where everybody swears by them, but you can't buy a new set. So we started researching that, and it was one of these things where you could have kind of stopped at many different intervals because it seems like it's too obvious. Like you're trying to build a business, but it feels too obvious. You're worried that you're just missing something, right? So but the thing about bunny boots is the way they're designed is very similar to another product that we designed, which is the Alaskan bush wheel. So Alaskan bush wheel is the big, crazy-looking cartoon tires you see on all the bush planes if you're not a pilot. That is a rubber. You basically buy raw rubber and you lay it out and you vulcanize it and you QC it and you do all these things and you basically build a tire, a special kind of tire. And a bunny boot is basically it's a boot version. It's a rubber boot, so it's a boot version of that. And it even has air pockets in it like a tire, which is how it works so well. It's called vapor barrier VBX or vapor barrier insulation. So we've worked on this for a while. We analyzed the market. We deconstructed old bunny boots, all this kind of thing, and we decided we want to make a go at it. But this was one that we'd love to make in Alaska, but the cost to build a factory up here and do it, it's on the order of $7-8 million is our estimate to kind of build the factory. And when you're launching a product, you don't know what you don't know. Like you could come out and bunny boots could be the greatest thing ever, and it could have funded that kind of upfront expenditure, or it might not. It might just be kind of a weird thing we do. So what we opted to do was outsource that. So we did the design work and the engineering work and the QC work, but then we tried to find a factory that would do it. And we talked to the U.S. military about it. We went and researched the old bunny boots, and there's no one in the United States or Canada that can build the bunny boot. So, which was our target markets, because those are ones that we could have actually sold to the military. The ones we're building are actually made in China. So we found 2 factories in the world. Both were in China. One of them literally makes the extra tough boot. And this other one makes a whole bunch of other boots you guys will have heard of if you're like, they make the Tory Burch boots and the Calvin Klein boots and all this kind of stuff. But we went and visited these factories. We went to China and visited them, and then we decided to work with one. And they actually helped us with the design. They helped us with a lot of the testing. They're the ones producing the first rounds. And this is, but the scenario is they're going to make our first 10,000 pair of boots, which are arriving now in Alaska over the next 3 months. And if in fact we can prove the market out, I want to go back and see if we can build these things in Alaska. And there is money available from the U.S. federal government to do that, to support the military use of the boots. But I kind of have to prove the market out to make sure that we're, so this all could work to be a nice industry in Alaska. Yeah. But I don't know yet. So we basically decided to just, so we've outsourced that. So that will be something that as it grows is not made in Alaska that we sell.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I was just curious about kind of where you were at with that process. I mean, even like, it sounds like 95% of the stuff you're making here. So it's just, about kind of figuring this out and kind of integrating that.
There are other things we don't make here. Like, for instance, when you sell a tent to somebody, we make the tent here. And we have proprietary materials, and we Arctic Oven, we have a name brand. Everybody expects Alaska to have the warmest tent. So we have things that can help us in a very hard market like tents. But we also sell chairs and tables and cots. And, we looked at all those markets. Well, I can't make I literally, my cost to produce those products here is like 5 times the price of building them in China or Korea.
Yeah. Wow.
So those we don't make either. So those we have made, we basically find partner facilities. That's, I think, maybe what I said Alaskify about, because we'll take a product that you can go buy at REI. You go buy this chair at REI for $60. Well, we find it In China, it's like $11, right? So someone's pocketing between 11 and 65. We basically go back to the factory and say, beef up this, double switch that, and then we're going to sell it. And we usually sell it for 50 if it's 65 at REI. So we've done that, but that's like a small part of our market, but we do that as sort of add-on products. And my son is running that division too. It's like anything we put our logo or our trademarks behind that we don't make, he's sort of running that group.
Nice. That's exciting.
No, that's super exciting. And thank you. And it sounds like such a cool opportunity to look for and hopefully be able to bring it to Alaska. I think that would be super exciting.
Yeah, the bunny boots, there's some potential. I mean, we're through 3 days of sales. We've sold a little over 1,000 pair. So
awesome.
So we're rolling.
Yes.
The computer systems are holding up. The questions are being answered. So far, so good. And the factory's doing great as well. So far, it's looking good.
That is awesome. And you said 10,000 that they're going to do, or 15,000?
So we ordered 10,000 pair, and they come in 5 waves of 2,000 each. And so and the first wave comes in October. So it's basically each wave is a Connex full of
nice
bunny boots, basically. So we've got 10,000 showing up, and we did a pre-order to help fund the order and to kind of see what our interest was. We started that 2 days ago, and yeah, we're over 1,000 pairs.
Right now is the pre-order.
Right now it's pre-order. Yeah, if you go to the website, it'll say pre-order, and you get a discount if you buy them before they're here.
I mean, you're already a tenth of the way there.
Yeah, I know it's feeling good. We're happy with it. I'm happy. I have people here that wanted to sell 10,000 in one day. I have people who thought we wouldn't sell any, but we all made estimates. I said 600 on the first day. I think we came in at 750 on the first day.
Wow.
And that was Tuesday, Wednesday. So we're 2 days and a few hours into it so far.
Wow. Congratulations. It's going to be huge.
They're a fun product.
And when the military gets behind that too, because they do need an update. Like, why don't they?
They do. It's just that getting them made in the United States, you have to basically repatriate technology and processes that the United States hasn't done in 20 years, 30 years sometimes. Like these boots, this is a very manual process to lay out a boot like this. And so all the US manufacturers just got out of it, especially one this complicated. So
yeah. Well, when you're ready to do that and you need some assistance, we will people that can do research just to make sure you're getting the right equipment. And we've had different manufacturers like save a lot of money by going that route, just happen to.
If we actually bring bunny boot production to Alaska, it's going to be an all hands on deck for a lot of people. So I think, but I'm excited for it. I'm like, I tell people I'm down for that. That sounds like a great problem to solve. And so we'll see. We'll see how the first year goes.
Absolutely. That's exciting.
Sammy, go ahead. Back to your.
No, you're good. Thank you so much for sharing about that. That is super exciting, and congratulations for sure. Talking about that kind of goes into the next question, the significant growth that Alaska Gear Company has seen. What have been key milestones, turning points, and operational strategies that have contributed to your success?
So the key milestones in my mind, so basically every business I think comes down to its people. And I think the key milestones, I think for all of my business endeavors ever have been certain people I hired. And I just, whenever you're hiring someone, you have a gut instinct about it. They joke, I have these people I hire sort of as projects or on the whim, and people tease me about them. But you basically hire someone, you kind of, know a little bit, but you don't really know the whole story.
Right.
And then you get surprised, and the leverage of having the right person in the right seat is just infinite. Just like the leverage of keeping the wrong person for a long time. It's just like when you finally cut bait, you're like, oh, why did I do that 2 years ago? And then when you get the right person, you're just like, my life's been changed. And so, you guys probably know Deanna Haracha, who's the CFO of this company. I mean, when you're managing growth, you're managing a balance sheet. And she was crazy enough to come on board, and she had a great job. But she's a pilot, and she loves the outdoors. And we were able to trick her into coming on board. But I still remember the day I was literally walking down a runway where they're saying, you got to come on board, and you got to do this with me. And she said yes. And I mean, she's transformative in the sense that I'm this crazy person out there trying new things, and then she's the one kind of pulling on the back of my sweatshirt saying, hold on, you don't have the capital for that, you don't have this or that, we're here, and trying to make it all work. And I'm a pretty intense entrepreneur. I pour I'm in growth mode. I'm pouring every dollar back in. So I'm running low cash balances and I'm trying to just push. If I make another dollar, I'm pushing it into something else.
Yeah.
And I have the luxury of being able to do that. I've been successful in my career, so I don't, this doesn't have to fund my whole life. It just has to, I just want it to grow. So she kind of has understood that and helped me with that. And so she's a pivotal part of what Alaska Gear Company has become over the last couple of years. I guess I would, in terms of trigger points, I would think it's mostly that. I think every acquisition we made is also kind of a big leap of faith. We're buying something and we're valuing a company based on what they've done for the past 5 years of revenue and earnings. But in our minds, we're thinking about, can we double it? And basically, we're doing it because we think we can double it. We have been successful in doubling it, but we don't really know if we're right. There's been some super funny stories where I buy a company and there's this business line in there I didn't even know what they had, and we're trying, they had teasing. There's all kinds of weird things that have happened over the years, but all good stories. But those are other pivot points. Like you bring in new people and you bring in new processes, and is the synergy what you thought it would be? Is the growth potential really what you thought it was?
Yeah.
Because you don't buy a company and run it the same way. You basically have a 5-year return on your money if you don't grow it. Our goal is to get that below 2 years when we buy a company. So, and then because Alaska is a small place, you're always trying to buy something. You're trying to make sure everybody feels like a winner in the deal, because you're going to walk into the supermarket and see them again, and it's all that.
Right.
So, so I think those are also pivot points in it. I think the key thing to high growth and in this whole sector is always good quantitative KPIs and numbers. Like I think a lot of people, it's very much true in Alaska with small entrepreneurships. They run their businesses by their checkbook, and they don't really have any sort of pre KPIs or post KPIs to see really how they're doing. And they don't really have the numbers to evaluate and make a decision as much as they think they do. Being a computer scientist first, I think I always think about that first. And I think that's a differentiator for us as a company in the sense that we keep bringing it back down to numbers. And of course, that works really well for someone like, Deanna, if you guys know Deanna. But that's, I think, a key part of how we've managed the growth and through all these processes.
Well, that's good that you have that too. Like she has that, but you also have that, even though you're excited to go into things. You already know it's going to come down to those numbers.
We do, but she holds the string on the balloon and I'm the balloon. So it's like, so part of it is you hire for your weaknesses too. And she's just, phenomenal at that. So
that's amazing. I think a team is so important. Like, I've seen a lot of people get recruited for a lot of things lately, especially in these years now where we're having a harder time with workforce development and things like that, or just attaining our workforce. Recruiting has become a huge thing.
It's a big deal. Big deal. And if you find the right people, you got to take care of them and you got to keep them. And you got the top people in our company are owners in the company. So, we have a big option. That's how it seems to be unique in Alaska, but we have a stock option plan. People are owners in the company.
That's awesome.
That keeps people, if they have another opportunity, they think about it at least. I get a few minutes to convince them to stay.
Nice.
No, that is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I think team, as Megan said, is just so important. So I can definitely see what that's, and it's nice that it sounds like since you've been so successful, you have those numbers to really fall back on. So it is really nice to make sure that you're always, it's kind of going back to data. You can't just, you are taking risks, but you're also looking at numbers. So you're taking the right calculated risks is what it sounds like.
Exactly. That's what it is. You just can't just kind of wing it every day,
right?
Especially when you get up to scale. I mean, and I honestly see a lot of that up here. There's so many brilliant people. I think there's a lot of 0 to 1 people, and like me probably, but there's not as many. You get up in the other areas, I think they end up getting into bigger corporations. They don't stay with the entrepreneurships as much, but it's been interesting to watch.
Totally.
So getting into the next, Alaska Gear Company, you operate in a competitive outdoor gear market. How do you ensure, I think kind of going back to numbers, like we were just kind of talking about, but maybe taking a little bit further, some financial stability while staying innovative and also meeting the needs of your customers?
So the thing that keeps us safe is that we always view our Alaskan world as our key customers. So we operate 3 retail stores in the state, very expensive to do. I mean, that's one that, you look at it and does it pencil all the time? No, it does not. But we do it because we want to make sure we're number one in our key state in our world, and then we want to basically export that. And we believe that by being number one here, we can export basically Alaska, which is like one of the greatest brands in the world. So the funny thing about what we do when we look at products and segments is we're looking to see, is there an Alaskan brand in the segment? If it is, it's a potential acquisition, or we stay away because we don't want to hurt anybody else who's trying to do something in the space we're in. If there's not, and it's a segment like outdoor equipment, I believe that every segment of outdoor equipment, anything outdoor, there's room for at least one Alaskan competitor, because Alaska is the greatest brand. It's the most hijacked and stolen brand too. I mean, talk about appropriation. I just, these guys brought me a knife company from Texas that's called Alaska Knives the other day. My car's called a Denali. So, everybody's a Kuyu. I mean, I go to Sept. I mean, pick one. They're not here, but they've all picked the greatest brand out there. And I just, that's a total, that's BS. So I'm just like, let's be the real GOAT on Alaska outdoor equipment. And if there's a segment there's no one Alaska's playing in, let's go see if we can play in it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm leveraging the Alaska story and the Alaska mystique. It doesn't even have to be right? You just have to pitch that story. And then can we do it? Like, is it feasible inside everything else that we're trying to manage? So I look at the market that way to try to pick what we're going to do. It's a little harder when you get outside of aviation, because in aviation, I am protected. I have STCs, I have licenses, I have PMAs, I have authorizations from the U.S. government to make these parts. It's very hard for another company to do that. People are like, shouldn't you hide all your trade secrets? And I'm like, if anybody wants to be number two in our small market, have at it. I'm like, have at it. Take a small piece of a small pie, go for it. It's the dumbest thing you ever did. But so I don't tend to hide stuff, because I think we are who we are in our markets. So that's how I look at it. I try to evaluate those things, and we're trying to now export the brand more. We're moving into bag lines, different types of bags, all different types. You name it, if you've seen some of our stuff. But that's something where we think we can sell the lower 48, and it's really sort of more of an aspirational purchase by them. But it's carrying our story into a very competitive market, and we think we can go pull a certain amount of people using the story of Alaska out of that large market.
Okay, so the next thing is bags.
Oh, go ahead.
Next thing is bags.
Yep.
I think that was going to be my question. What's the next thing you're exploring? But is it, because I think I saw on the Alaska Wild Project, it's bags that go in the sled, or is it separate? Or
yeah, so you saw poke bags, but no, we have a whole bunch of other bags. Like we'll be launching 1, 2, 4 different bag lines between now and the end of 2025. And they all have different purposes and different, need. They fill different needs, and they satisfy different types of buyers. So we've targeted different parts of the market. We're emphasizing sort of, big Alaskan stuff and big Alaskan stories. And those are things to expand sort of our addressable market. But in the meantime, the company's we're about to come out with like 3 new aviation products as well on that side. We have a whole bunch of sled stuff coming out this winter. In the tent area, we're coming out with so the Arctic oven is very, very expensive, and it works to -60, but we think there's plenty of people who want a cold weather tent, maybe basically past 40, you want something, right? So you kind of like, we call it the Goldilocks tent. We're trying to find this tent that's less expensive, that has our story, has the Alaska part to it, but could be used sort of in the lower 48 in a less harsh environment. So that's something that's going to be released probably in 2025. And then we do government work too. So we support the U.S. military, Arctic type stuff as well with projects. And that's not stuff you really hear about that much, but they're coming to us and saying, hey, you solved these problems, go solve this one for us. And we do that stuff as well.
Nice. How many SKUs do you have?
That's a great question. You know what? I'm a computer scientist.
I'm guessing.
So you know what I'm going to do? I've never done this on a podcast. I'm actually going to write.
We'll get the answer shortly.
I know. I'm on the edge of my seat.
I have 18,843 parts designed.
Oh my goodness.
They're not all sellable because a lot of them are subcomponents of other components. But to give you a sense, in one quick query, that's the closest I'm going to come without boring you all to death with looking at the back of my head.
18,000 is a lot. That's a lot.
18,843.
Oh, let's just say 19,000. Wow. That's impressive.
What was your guess, Megan?
You're
like,
you got
I said over 1,000.
Yeah.
Well, if you were to break it down to sellable things, which I could do in another query right now, but I think it would probably be between 1,000 and 2,000. Megan, you're probably right.
Okay. That's still a lot. That's a lot of different things. That's a lot of items. That is a well-established brand, and you're kind of in different categories. That's amazing. That's amazing.
It's software. Well, I'm using software to manage it, but yeah, getting into manufacturing where everything has to become tactile, be put in a box, know where it is, make sure that people do the right thing on it. A whole different ballgame from what I'm used to, but what I was used to early in my career. But we made it work. We made it work.
You're definitely in the right industry for selling the Alaska story. So, and you're actually in Alaska. So
I am not a poser. I am here. I am living it, eating it, drinking it. I'm not a poser. And I get the reason I think this company is going to do great is we're competing against posers. And I think at some point that authenticity should win at least some part of the market share in these different
absolutely. I feel like we've been learning so much in like brand recognition. Everyone wants that like true authentic self. You don't want like even like social media and everything is becoming way more authentic and less edited and less versions of that. So the fact that you're able to, you already have that. So that is amazing. And
and also I want to say too, just thank you. Like, thank you. We need to bring more pride into our manufacturing period, and doing that here in Alaska. Like, you're creating something that people are going to be able to look at and say, yeah, I can also do that here. That's huge.
Thank you for the work you do in this area as well. I think it's a big adventure. People think Alaska's hard because you're going to try to climb Denali or raft some crazy river or go on some long resurrection pass track. Building manufacturing in Alaska is actually more of an extreme sport. I'm just, so, we're the OGs right here. I mean, like that's where it's at. It's just really hard.
It is.
It's definitely,
and it's not undoable.
I feel like every manufacturer that we've talked to so far, they definitely have a passion behind their project and they're excited to be in Alaska. I mean, being like made from Alaska, manufactured in Alaska product is amazing. It's hard. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to do it. It's easy. You have to be so passionate behind it and then just so proud of where you're at, and you're encompassing that so amazingly. So thank you.
I was asked, and there was an interview where I was asked, okay, what are your advantages being in Alaska? And I just was like, I go, in manufacturing, nothing. I mean, like I couldn't think of one at the time. Like, I don't know what it is. I go, but I want to live here, so let's figure this out. It's like,
exactly.
That's how I ended up in it. Yeah. That's the question. But
well, to wrap this up, this is one of my favorite questions I like to ask. So for manufacturers and business owners that are watching and they're looking to scale operations, what is the best advice you would offer based on your experience in leading diverse businesses and navigating your businesses here in the state of Alaska?
I think the biggest mistake I see is that growth needs to be funded. I mean, I think people forget sort of the balance sheet aspect of growth. So I feel like a lot of people who get excited about things or want to build things don't have the financial engineering background, and so they end up heading down a path, and they're not capitalized properly for it. So I think it's very important to sort of run this thing out. If you're what is your cash cycle on what you're building? How much capital do you need to get to your endpoint and actually start bringing cash back in? And I find that a lot of people haven't analyzed that. People come in and want me to look at business plans and all this kind of stuff, and they're not looking at their cash, what happens with cash and the cash cycle of the business they're contemplating. And that's how you get into big trouble. And that's how you end up with this sort of false start kind of scenario. And I think be careful about how you raise capital as well. I see a lot of sort of goofy ways of raising capital. I think you got to be very careful about how you do that. There's a lot of things out there like Kickstarter. which don't really work, honestly, in my mind. I think they're kind of not good ways to raise capital. I think you're better off finding someone who believes in your vision, and you've got good investors that can be mentors and investors. This crowd stuff, I think, is a joke. Be honest, but that would be my advice: is really get into the financials of what you're trying to do, just as much as the manufacturing is what you're doing. That's it's a huge component. It's like everything costs. A software company runs at 95% gross margins. Manufacturing company, ours runs at about 50. So you got, that's a lot of capital to get to run a $20 million business.
Yep.
So that would be my big advice.
I think that's great. That's great advice. That's something personal goal. Actually, I'm like, I'm going to get better at the money thing when it comes, because it's such a big part of building a business. And I'm like, if I want to be a successful entrepreneur with the next adventure, that's something I got to know about. So I think that's great advice. Great, Sean.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate the time. So we wrapping up here?
Yeah, no, looks like we are right at the end. So thank you so much for your time and all your advice and learning more about you, your family, and all the success that you've had over the past years. We're definitely rooting for you. So thank you so much for being on here.
Oh, thank you. Great job, guys. Great job. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. And thank you, everyone. We'll do this in 2 more weeks. So please join us. We'll have another great guest in a couple of weeks, and have a great rest of your week.
All right. Take care.
See ya.